Romance of Sui in Tang Dynasties, Chapter 55.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Right.
We're jumping straight into a really chaotic moment. 7th century China and the rebel state of Wei, led by Li Mi, has just completely collapsed.
It's a total power vacuum. And this isn't a story about grand battles. It's about what happens the day after, when the generals have to, look in the mirror and decide what to do next.
And the source material, the Sui Teng Yan Ye, it gives us this incredibly stark image to start with.
Oh, it's brutal. Li Mi and his most loyal follower, Wang Bodong, they've been executed. And their heads are displayed publicly. The text calls it hanging on a pole.
It's pure psychological warfare, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a message.
So if you're one of Li Mi's officers, you're out there, you're lost, and you see the head of your commander on a spike, that's designed to do one thing.
Force you to submit.
This is really the core of what we're looking at today, this conflict between two ideas. You've got Yi.
Right, which is duty. It's loyalty, integrity, doing the right thing.
And then you have Quan.
Which is expediency, flexibility, strategy, basically doing what works to survive and win.
And the source has this perfect line for it. It says, in times of chaos, loyalty is often lost because people are like travelers, able to pitch camp anywhere.
I love that line. It captures the desperation.
So Qin Wang,
the man who would eventually become the great Emperor Taizong,
exploits that desperation. How he gets Li Mi's best commanders to pitch their tents in his camp.
And he does it not just with force, but with some incredibly shrewd political moves. It really is a masterclass.
So where do we start?
We start with a man named Wei Xing. He sees the heads on display, and the text says he was grieved and restless.
What's so interesting to me is his reaction. It's not fear. It's not even calculation, not at first. It's principle.
It's pure Yi. He immediately uses the death of Wang Bodong, the one guy who stayed loyal to the end, as a sort of moral measuring stick.
He calls him Li Mi's neck-cutting friend. What does that mean exactly?
It's a phrase that implies the deepest possible bond. A ride-or-die friendship, basically. Wei Zhang is saying, look, only this man showed full loyalty and perfect fidelity. The rest of us, we ran.
But wait, isn't that a bit self-serving? He's basically admitting he defected, but he's using the loyalty of a dead man to give himself the moral high ground with his new boss.
That's the genius of it. That's the pivot from Yi to Quan. He takes this act of moral courage, mourning the dead, and immediately turns it into a strategic opportunity.
What does he do?
He goes straight to Qin Wang. And he doesn't just ask for a favor, he gives him political advice. He says, in essence, you have a chance here to prove you're not just another warlord.
He tells him not to follow the lost kin.
The lost kin, right. We need to pause on that.
Because the Qin dynasty, they were the ones who unified China, but they were also seen as
brutal tyrants. Their rule was famously short-lived because it was built on cruelty and harsh laws. Wei Zhang is drawing a direct line. He's warning Qin Wang, if you disrespect the dead, everyone who's watching will think you're just another tyrant.
He's saying, don't be them. Be better.
Exactly. Be like the great founders. He even brings up Han Guozhu, the founder of the Han Dynasty,
who famously buried his arch-rival, Shang Yu, with full honors.
And that single act showed the whole world that he was a ruler, not just a conqueror. So Wei Xing takes that historical lesson and turns it into two very specific demands.
Okay, what's the first?
The first seems simple. He asks for a month's leave. He wants to go get the bodies of Li Mi and Wang Bodong and give them a proper burial.
Seems like a respectful, personal request.
It is. But the second request is the real political bombshell.
Which is?
A full-blown imperial edict. An amnesty. He wants Qin Wang to officially pardon the families of the dead, and more importantly, grant amnesty to all of Li Mi's former soldiers.
All those guys who were wavering and watching.
Thousands of them. A potential army just waiting to see which way the wind blows. Wei Xing is offering Qin Wang a way to win them over without firing a single shot.
And what does Qin Wang think of this? I mean, a former enemy general is telling him how to run his war.
Well, his first instinct is to refuse. The source says he's reluctant, asking why he should sideline Wei Xing's advice for this common fellow, meaning Li Mi.
He's focused on the short-term gain.
But Wei Xing immediately reframes it. He says this isn't just about Li Mi, this is truly assisting the Tang's plan. It's a long-term strategic investment.
And Qin Wang gets it.
Instantly. That's what makes him a great leader. He pivots from reluctance to action. The edict is issued.
So an act that started with a plea for moral duty for Yi
solves a massive strategic problem. It's a perfect fusion of the two. It tells every single soldier out there that the Tang is a safe bet.
So that's how he handles the principled statesman. But what about the hardcore warrior? What about Qin Shi Bao?
Now this is where the strategy gets much more personal. It moves from public edicts to targeted psychological pressure.
So he shifts scenes. Qin Shi Bao is meeting with another general, Xu Shiji.
Right, and the first thing they do is they justify their own choices. They need to believe they did the right thing.
So they agree. Li Mi failed because he was, full of arrogance and confused in his will?
Basically, yeah. He was a bad leader who wouldn't listen to good advice. They're telling themselves, we didn't betray him, he betrayed his own potential. It's their internal narrative.
But just as they're getting comfortable with that, Xu Shiji drops a bomb.
A huge one. He tells Qin Shi Bao that his mother, his wife, and his son have been tricked into moving to the Tang capital.
Tricked? Not captured.
The wording is so deliberate. The source even says Qin Wang used a woman to impersonate someone the mother trusted to convince her to move.
Wow. So it's coercion, but with a thin veil of civility? They're not hostages, they're guests.
Exactly. It's high-stakes human chess. Qin Wang is targeting the one thing he knows a man like Qin Shi Bao can't ignore, his duty as a son. Filial piety, Xiao.
And for anyone listening, it's hard to overstate how powerful that was. Failing your mother wasn't just embarrassing. It was a kind of spiritual and social ruin.
Completely. And then comes the letter from his mother, addressed to him personally, using his childhood name, begging him to submit to the Tang.
He's trapped. Qin Wang has found the perfect leverage.
And it puts him in what the source calls the two difficulties, a classic political dilemma.
Okay, walk us through them. What's the first difficulty?
First, if he submits and the Tang just treats him like any other low-level officer, he loses all his status, and Qin Wang looks ungrateful. A bad look for everyone.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the second one?
The second one is much worse. If the Tang honors him with a really high position,
then all his old comrades will think he was a traitor all along.
Precisely. They'll think he secretly planned the whole thing, using his mother's capture as an excuse to defect. He loses all credibility.
He's damned if he's treated poorly, and he's damned if he's treated well.
It's a perfect trap.
So how do they get out of it? How does strategy, Quan, solve this?
They choose the one thing that can untangle a knot like this. Patience.
They wait.
Xu Shiji advises him to wait for the political situation to stabilize. The Tang court is still a volatile place. Rushing in could mean picking the wrong side or getting caught in some other power play.
But he can't just leave his mother hanging.
No, of course not. So they make a very careful, covert move. They send another one of their brothers, Luo Shixin, to the capital.
But not as a general.
No, in deep disguise. The text says he was dressed as a common messenger. His job is to comfort the family and, more importantly, to be their eyes and ears, to assess the real danger without signaling that Qin Shi Bao is about to surrender.
So he's satisfying his family duty while maintaining his strategic distance.
It's a brilliant move. It buys them time.
So they've navigated their own moral maze. But there's one more piece on the board, isn't there? The one guy who won't bend. Qin Shi Bao's sworn brother.
And he's the total opposite of everyone we've talked about. He hasn't surrendered. He's thrown in his lot with another rival warlord, Wang Shichong.
He represents that pure, unbending loyalty, the kind that doesn't care about strategy.
And Xu Shiji, the ultimate pragmatist, gives this incredibly sharp analysis of him.
What does he say?
He says, Shan Xiangxin is a good man, compassionate. 4 C's of compassion is the phrase. But he does not understand current affairs. He's obstinate. His loyalty, his goodness, it blinds him to reality.
And what's driving that loyalty? It's not just political, it's personal.
It's a blood feud. The Tang killed his brother. For him, it's not about which side is going to win. It's about an unmovable grudge. There is no political calculation that can overcome a need for revenge.
So for him, Yi is everything. Quan doesn't even enter the picture.
Not at all. And Xu Shiji warns that this makes him dangerous. He says if Qin Shi Bao goes to see him, Shan Xiangxin is so committed, he might actually try to take him hostage to keep him from joining the Tang.
His loyalty is so strong it becomes a threat to his own friends.
And just as they're having this conversation, another general, Jia Rungpu, shows up with news that proves Xu Shiji was right all along.
What's the news?
He confirms what happened to Li Mi. Li Mi did submit to the Tang. They gave him titles, a princess in marriage. But he couldn't stand being a subordinate. He tried to flee and restart his rebellion.
And the Tang hunted him down and killed him.
Yes. It proves that rushing into the Tang court, as Li Mi did, was a fatal mistake. Xu Shiji's advice to wait was absolutely correct.
So the situation is just as unstable as they feared. But the problem of their friend, Shan Zhongqing, is still out there.
It is. And the last thing we see in the section is them asking Jia Runpu to go and talk to Shan Zhongqing. They've saved themselves, and now they have to try and save their friend from his own principles. Two of these pivotal generals, Qin Shubao and Zhu Maogong, and they're sort of trying to escape all the political chaos by just hunting in the countryside.
Right, trying to lay low. Exactly. And then they suddenly cross paths with their comrade, Wei Zhang.
And Wei Zhang's appearance, it immediately signals catastrophe. He's traveling in full mourning, a plain, simple carriage pulled by white horses. This wasn't, a subtle hint.
No.
This was a billboard declaring that their lord was gone.
And Wei Zhang confirms the worst. He tells them their former leader, Li Mi, who they often called Wei Gong, and his most trusted ally, Wang Bodang, were dead.
He just says they're among the deceased. It's so blunt. The gravity of it just hits them immediately. And Li Mi was a major player, a real rival to the rising Tang.
And now he's just gone, a memory.
And this is the new reality for these commanders. Their leader is dead, their army is scattered, and they have to pick a side fast. So these three, Qin Shubao, Xu Maogong, and Wei Zhang, they have to figure out how to secure their future in a world that's now completely dominated by the Tang Emperor. Okay, so let's set the scene a bit more. What exactly happened to Li Mi? Why did this one-chance meeting on a country road just instantly change everything for the entire Wagong faction?
So Wei Zhang explains the grim details. Li Mi had first tried to defect to the Tang dynasty.
He fled.
He fled, tried to keep his resistance going, but he was intercepted near a place called Shangzhou. He was killed by a storm of 10,000 arrows.
So the generals, they know right away they need to retrieve the bodies. But first, they've got to find them.
Right. And Wei Zhang recounts his search at this remote and really difficult spot called Bear Ear Mountain.
And the terrain itself seems important here.
Oh, it is. It emphasizes just how hard it was to perform this one last act of loyalty. We're talking high cliffs, dense forests, treacherous ground, a path so narrow that, only two horses could fit side by side.
So he's searching for days.
For days. And his luck only changed because of this small, surprising detail we pulled from the source. They found the bodies, but only with help from a loyal insider.
This part is amazing. It wasn't some official search party or anything?
No, it was a former personal retainer of Li Mi, someone who had miraculously survived the attack and was now, of all things, living as a local Taoist priest in a tiny temple.
He was the only one who knew where the makeshift grave was.
The only one. They eventually find the bodies, covered in mud and just riddled with arrow wounds.
It's awful.
Wei Zhang buys some coffins, gives them a temporary burial right there at the temple. But the real problem remained. The final indignity. The real political threat.
The heads.
The heads of Li Mi and Wang Bodang were still on public display, on poles, in Shenyang, the Tang capital.
So the political issue isn't the bodies buried on some remote mountain. It's the severed heads, which are serving as this very stark, very public warning, a symbol of Tang victory.
Exactly. And Wei Zhang points out, correctly, that trying to just sneak in and steal those heads back, given how volatile things were, it would be seen as an act of open rebellion.
They'd be killed on sight.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
So the grief, it's immediately replaced by this cold political necessity. They need the heads to honor their lord. But they need a strategy that turns that act of defiance into a job application.
And that is where Zhu Maogong steps in.
That's the pivot.
So here's where it gets really interesting. The conversation shifts from honoring the dead to, pure strategy. Xu Maogong lays out two choices for them.
Mm-hmm.
Disperse after the funeral and just fade into history, or pursue great deeds again under a new lord.
And Zhu Maogong, who just understood the political landscape better than anyone, he immediately singles out the Prince of Qin, Li Shimin, as the only viable leader for men with their ambition. But he gives this crucial warning.
Which is all about the how.
It's all about the how. He warns them against approaching the Tang court as, and this is a quote, poor birds seeking shelter, or, my favorite,
wagging their tails, begging for pity. The language is just so vivid.
Isn't it? He's saying if they come in looking desperate, they'll be seen as mediocre folk, like grass and weeds. They lose all their leverage. Their value is completely tied to the honor they can project.
So the goal isn't just to defect, it's to defect in such a way that you force the Tang court to recruit you as these respected, high-value assets. And that's going to require a performance.
A grand political gesture.
So what was the plan? What was the immediate, actionable strategy to pull this off?
It was meticulous. First, Xu Maogong says he will leave immediately that night for Chang'an to execute the most critical part of the plan in the capital.
And second, a decision about their own allies.
Yes, a critical one. They agree they will not inform their remaining comrades back at Wagang Mountain. Not yet.
Okay, why the secrecy? Is that just logistical?
It's partly political insurance, yeah.
Yeah.
Small fallback position. But more importantly, Shan Urge, that's Shan Jiangxin's family, was still at Wagang, and he would never, ever join the Tang.
So they needed to avoid that conflict.
Exactly. To sidestep that, they decide they'll just send Zai Rang's family to a neutral third party, Wang Shichang, later on. It just shows you how complex and delayed all these loyalties were during this chaotic time.
And then comes the real stroke of genius, the public funeral, the staging.
There's the centerpiece. Vice General Wang Bo is given two huge tasks. First, disperse all their existing assets, give the warehouse supplies to the common people, and give the payroll to the soldiers.
Which makes them look honorable, not like they're just abandoning their posts and running off with the cash.
Precisely. And then the visuals.
The visuals.
Wang Bo is tasked to gather 3,000 troops, change all their banners and armor to white mourning clothes sugao, and march to Bear Ear Mountain for the funeral.
So this is not a quiet burial.
Not at all. This is a massive, highly visible military display of fealty to their old lord, staged directly in the line of sight of their new potential employer.
But isn't that an unbelievably risky move? I mean, couldn't the Tang court see 3,000 armed mourning troops gathering near the capital and think, uh-oh, this looks like another rebellion?
And that's the brilliance of the two-part strategy. The funeral gathering, the 3,000 troops, that provides the threat. The threat of a sustained, loyal fighting force.
Okay.
But Zhu Maogong's solo act in Chang'an, that provides the translation for the threat. He's there to explain that this fierce loyalty is now on the market, it's available to Tang, provided Tang shows the proper respect. They separated the negotiation from the military mobilization.
So Zhu Maogong, who's now often called Zhu Shiji, travels overnight to Chang'an. He's disguised as a scholar.
Right, just a simple scholar. He gets to the city's main intersection, and there they are. The two heads on the poles, the stage is set.
And this is where it all comes to a head, so to speak. A dramatic, high-stakes confrontation.
And the context here is just so important. Xu Shiji walks up, he performs this deep four-bow salute, then he embraces the poles and just starts crying, wailing, really.
Which obviously gets the guards' attention.
Immediately, they drag him before the emperor. And like you said, the timing for this kind of public defiance is just, it's terrible.
The Tang emperor is not in a good mood. They're not secure yet. A rival, Lu Wuzhu, has declared himself emperor, and his top general, Yu Qi Jingde, just handed the Tang forces a major defeat in Taiwan.
So the emperor is enraged, he's paranoid, he's highly sensitive to any sign of disobedience or, lingering resistance.
So when Zhu Shiji is dragged in front of him, the emperor is ready to just execute him on the spot.
Absolutely. But Xu Shiji's defense, it's a masterpiece of political rhetoric. He basically weaponizes history to save his own skin.
He starts with some general historical precedents, right? Ancient rulers honoring the dead, the wisdom of not punishing mourners. He mentioned someone named Wang Jing from the East Jin.
Right. But the critical argument, the historical dagger that he really twists, involves the precedent of Kaiyang.
This is the core of it.
This is the entire argument. He reminds the emperor of the story of Kaiyang, a loyal official who wept over the body of the tyrannical warlord Dong Zhuo. The ruler who came after, believing this was an act of disloyalty, had Kaiyang punished.
And what was the political fallout from that punishment, according to Xu Shiji's argument?
Instability. Xu Shiji cites the precedent that punishing loyalty, even loyalty to a dead tyrant, led to the subsequent ruler failing to enjoy the kingdom for long. He's not saying, I'm loyal to Li Mi. He's saying, if you punish my display of loyalty now, you are sending a message to every general and scholar watching that serving the Tang is dangerous.
That your rule will be short-lived.
That your rule will be short-lived. It's brilliant political leverage. He took his personal grief and turned it into this profound threat against the emperor's mandate.
And that final line is just a killer. He challenges him directly, right?
He does. He says, if you hold a grudge against dried bones and punish the tears of your servants, how will the wise and capable ever agree to submit to you?
And the effect was?
Wow. Instantaneous. The emperor's anger just vanishes because he gets it. He recognizes the sheer political wisdom in that statement. He realizes that punishing Xu Shiji would destroy his recruitment efforts across the entire rebel base he's trying to win over.
And the emperor actually smiles. The source says he recognizes Xu Shiji as Shimin's benefactor. Why is that specific connection to his son, Prince Qin Shimin, so important in that moment?
It's the perfect off-ramp. It acts as an immediate de-escalator. Li Shimin was already famous for his ability to attract and keep brilliant military minds. So by calling Xu Shiji his son's benefactor, the emperor is basically saying, this man is a pre-vetted asset. He's one of ours already.
It gives him an easy excuse to forgive the defiance.
A perfect excuse. The emperor immediately orders the heads released. And as a sign of favor, he tries to give Xu Shiji an official rank, robes, everything right there on the spot.
But Xu Shiji performs one last act of strategic humility.
He refuses the promotion. This is so key. He argues that a subject who is disloyal to his former master, Wei Gong, could never be trusted to be loyal to the Tang.
So by refusing the reward, he makes himself look even more honorable.
Exactly. He burnishes his own reputation as a man of principle.
So instead of a promotion for himself, what's the one thing he asks for?
He asks only for the heads, so he can bury Li Mai with proper rights and, this is the critical detail, with original rank and status. He tells the emperor that this act, the emperor honoring a defeated enemy by granting him a posthumous official status, that will be the magnet that wins the loyalty of all of Wei Gong's former soldiers and generals.
And the emperor gets it. He grants the request immediately, understanding the huge political capital he just gained by looking so magnanimous. Xu Shiji is then told to go report to Li Shimin. The defection is complete.
And the strategy pays off instantly. Xu Shiji leaves with the heads, and the plan moves into phase 2. Within days, Wei Zhang reports back that the grand public gesture worked. Qin Chu Bao and the 3,000 troops in white have all arrived at Barrier Mountain for the burial.
And the news spreads.
Like wildfire. So fast that even Luo Shixin, another major general who was already in Cheng, hears about it and immediately leaves the capital to go join the funeral.
So that funeral for a defeated enemy, it became the single most effective recruitment drive for the Tang dynasty.
It really did. Meanwhile, Cheng Ziji left the Tang's Prince Qin, and he's supposed to be bringing his comrades over. But right away, he hits this huge personal roadblock.
He gets sick.
He gets severely ill. Wind and cold, the text says. And it puts him out of commission for 2 absolutely crucial weeks.
Okay, let's just stop there and unpack that. I mean, in a moment of intense political collapse, being cut off from reality for half a month, that's potentially fatal.
It is. He's stuck. He's sick. But the gears of power, they don't stop turning for anyone. It really, it highlights the stakes of being out of the loop.
So we're really tracking who survives this thing, who submits, who fights back, and who just walks away.
And this is where timing becomes everything. Ziji, he finally recovers. He gets near Weigan, and he runs into another commander, a man named Jia Runfu.
And Runfu is going the other way.
The complete opposite way, with his whole family in a carriage. And Ziji, who knows nothing, he just assumes Runfu is heading to the old camp to join up with Wei Gong. It just shows you how isolated he's been.
Oh, wow. Talk about a world-shattering moment on the side of a road.
It is. Runfu just stops him cold. He delivers the news. Wei Gong and Bodang, they were killed at Barrier Mountain.
And the other generals are already there?
Yes. He confirms Qin Shubao and Xu Shiji are on site, preparing the funeral.
So what's Ziji's reaction to this?
Well, first it's just pure grief. The source says his clothes were, wet with weeping. But then he pivots. And he pivots hard to a really brutal political critique.
Of the dead leader.
Exactly. He criticizes Wei Gong's confused will. And that specific phrase from the text, Ziki Hunui, it's so important. It's not just saying he was confused. It's a deep criticism of his moral character, his judgment, the very things that led him to destroy himself.
That's the moral loophole, isn't it? If your dead leader failed because he was fundamentally flawed, then you're justified in finding a new allegiance.
You are. And Ziji even criticizes the other brothers for not, counseling him better. But Runfu immediately pushes back.
He defends himself.
And he says he risked his life to do it. Runfu explains that he desperately advised against that final fatal journey, but Wei Gong just got angry, accused him of disloyalty, and threatened to kill him.
And the only reason he's alive is because Bodang stepped in.
Bodang saved his life. So yeah, you can imagine Runfu tried, he was nearly killed for it, and he had to watch his leader walk to his death anyway. His ambition is just shattered.
And this is where we see that splintering of the old guard. I mean, three totally different paths emerge from this one conversation.
Let's break those down because this is really the core of it. First, you have Tang Ziji, our main character. He's the loyal defector. He commits fully to the Tang. He sees it as the only stable future.
Okay, that's choice one. What's choice two?
Choice two is the absolute resistor. Runfu tells him he just met Shan Urge, that's Shan Jiangsun, and he refused to even talk about surrendering to the Tang.
So where does he go?
He goes to the enemy, Wang Shichong. He digs in and decides to fight.
And then there's Runfu himself, choice three.
The political dropout?
Yeah.
He's done. He tells Ziji he won't serve anyone else. He plans to, and this is a quote, seek peace among mountains and waters. He's just going to retire and watch from the sidelines.
It just shows how personal these decisions were. It wasn't just a simple binary choice.
Yeah, not at all. And it's that contrast that makes Ziji's next move so interesting. He doesn't quit. This failure, it actually gives him a new focus, a chance to repay an old debt.
A debt to his old benefactor, eunuch Yuan.
Right, who the text calls Yuan Wai. And we should probably clarify for everyone listening that title doesn't mean he was a literal eunuch.
Right, it's more of an honorific.
Exactly. For a wealthy local official, or a notable, it was probably Wei Gong's title before he rose to power. And Ziji uses it to remember where he came from. He says without this man, he'd still be selling firewood at the Spotted Dove Inn.
So this whole mission, joining the Tang, it's not just opportunistic, it's personal. He's trying to repay that debt by securing a future for his old comrades under this new, stable emperor.
That gratitude is the fuel for his entire political pivot. And he moves fast. I mean, incredibly fast. He rushes to Wugan, tells everyone what happened.
So families are obviously devastated.
Yes, the wise cry. But Ziji doesn't wait around. He's all business. He gathers the provisions, the treasury, all the families, and gets them moving immediately.
He's consolidating assets. He takes the 1,000 or so soldiers there and the entire administrative core of the old regime.
But this is where you see just how shrewd Tang Ziji really is. A few days into the journey, they run into another large group of soldiers.
And who are they?
They're his. 2,000 infantrymen that were Tang Ziji's own private force. He had them stashed away this whole time.
You're kidding. That's his insurance policy.
The ultimate contingency plan. The text says he was planning to go back to his old profession. Probably banditry. If Wei Gong's surrender didn't work out. He was hedging his bets.
And now this private army becomes a massive bargaining chip for his submission to the Tang.
A vital asset. He sends them straight to Barrier Mountain. So let's do a quick tally for you. You've got Ziji's 2,000, the Wei Gan remnants, plus the 4,000 to 5,000 troops already there, with Xu Shiji and Qin Shibao.
So all told, we're talking about, what, 10,000 men?
More than 10,000 men,
Yeah.
according to the source. And suddenly, this isn't just a sad funeral anymore. It's a massive staging ground for a formal, consolidated submission of military power.
And when they get there, the scene must have been incredible.
It was. A spectacle. The whole area is filled with soldiers in white mourning armor. Xu Shiji and Qin Shubao come out to greet them.
And Xu Shiji explains why they didn't send word sooner.
Yeah, and his explanation is very telling. He says they, quote, did not know if the incident was a blessing or a curse.
Wow, so they're holding back. They were waiting to see how the Tang would react before they fully committed.
They were. And they use that time to build. The Junta inspects the burial site, and it's elaborate. A huge earth mound, a 5-room structure, stone-carved burial pits, statues, columns, all built with incredible speed.
Okay, I have to ask. If your goal is to surrender, why build this huge, provocative monument to your dead leader? Isn't that, I don't know, almost treasonous to your new boss?
That's the political genius of it. It's a calculated risk, but it's brilliant. It serves two functions. One, it honors their past, so none of those 10,000 soldiers feel like they're just, betraying their old leader.
It gives them moral cover.
Right. And two, and this is critical, it shows the Tang that the surviving generals are not just a bunch of scared refugees. They are leaders in command of a unified, honorable, and very powerful fighting force.
It's loyalty signaling. The message is, we were loyal to him, and if you treat us with respect, we'll be loyal to you.
Exactly. And Ziji reinforces that message by bringing the families of Wei Gong and Bo Dang. They are the living, breathing, emotional core of this whole maneuver.
Which brings us to this chess game that plays out against a backdrop of very real, very public grief.
The widows are brought into the tomb, and they just break down, weeping, holding the coffins. Is a powerful scene, played out in front of the entire army.
And that sorrow becomes a political tool.
Immediately, Wei Gong's widow, Wang Nanyang, She steps out, she bows to the generals, and she makes this very public appeal. She acknowledges the vast imperial grace of the Tang, but begs them to remember their old friendships and protect her orphaned son.
The stakes couldn't be higher for her, and she underscores it with these dramatic suicide attempts.
Right. She grabs for a sword. Bodang's wife tries to strike her head against a stone. Now, whether that was completely spontaneous or a little bit staged, it doesn't matter.
No, because the effect is the same.
The effect is it proves to every soldier watching that the old loyalty was absolute, and now the generals have a moral duty to protect what's left.
And they leverage that moral duty immediately. Wei Xuancheng, or Wei Zheng, he hands Ziji a sealed letter.
A letter for a man named Xu Yufu back in the capital, Cheng'an. It's pure strategy.
What does it say?
It describes the loyalty of the widows, the deep sorrow of the troops, and then it asks Xu Yufu to get his daughter, Lady Huifei, to persuade Prince Qin to request an imperial sacrifice from the court, Yiji.
Okay, so the context of the Tang court at this exact moment is critical, right? They aren't sitting pretty.
Not at all. When Ziji gets to Qingyan, the court is in a state of panic. Lu Wuzhu's generals Song Jingyang, and a name you'll want to remember, Yuqi Jingde have just crushed Tang forces and are besieging a major city.
So they're losing.
Badly. The panic is so real that one of the princes, Li Yuanqi, has fled the battlefield and brought back a picture of Yuqi Jingde to show the emperor what this new terrifying enemy looks like.
So they're literally staring at a drawing of the guy who just beat them. And into that fear walks Cheng Ziji.
Exactly. Into this vacuum of bad news, he walks in and reports the opposite. He tells them he's got over 10,000 battle-hardened troops, all waiting at Barrier Mountain, ready to submit.
For a terrified court, that's not just a bonus, that's a lifeline.
A desperately needed one. And because the Tang are in such a weak position, the plan with the letter works perfectly.
Lady Huifei persuades Prince Qin.
She does. And Prince Qin goes to the court and requests the imperial sacrifice, an official high honor offering from the emperor himself, specifically to, and I quote, calm the hearts of the troops.
That's the masterstroke.
That's the whole game. Getting that UG was the ultimate political win. It allowed the generals to surrender without losing face, because the emperor himself had just blessed the magnificent funeral they built for his former enemy. It solidified the loyalty of 10,000 men in an instant. Meanwhile,
Qin Wang, the man who would eventually become the great Emperor Taizong, he decides he needs to personally attend Li Mi's funeral at a place called Shungzu. But his advisors balked. They saw this as a massive political risk, calling it, I think the term was, disrespect to status.
Exactly. I mean, the court saw in terms of pure status and hierarchy, why would a prince honor someone they just defeated? It looked like weakness or maybe misplaced pity. But Qin Wang, the strategist, he saw the risk in not going. He understood that Li Mi's power wasn't just in his title, it was in the quality of the men who followed him. The sources are so precise here. Li Mi's troops were able fighting men, a force of around 10,000 veterans.
So this wasn't really about burying Li Mi at all. It was about recruiting his army.
Precisely. It was a recruitment drive. If the Tang treated their dead leader with contempt, those 10,000 soldiers, including brilliant generals like Zhu Magong and Xin Kang, they would just scatter or defect or, harbor this deep resentment for years. Winning their loyalty immediately was paramount, and the funeral was the only venue to do it publicly.
And this is where it gets really sophisticated. Qin Wang didn't just decide this on a gut feeling. He actually used historical precedent to argue down his own advisors. What was his justification?
He explicitly reaches back to the Three Kingdoms period. He brings up the famous rivalry between Zhuge Liang and Zhu Yu. Zhuge Liang, after basically outmaneuvering Zhu Yu and causing his death, travels to Wu County to personally mourn his rival. And that public ritualistic display of respect deeply moved the enemy troops. It helped stabilize the whole region.
That's fascinating. So by invoking Zhuge Liang, Qin Wang is framing his own attendance not as some act of personal sympathy, but as a deliberate act of high statecraft. He's echoing the greats. But how did he make sure his public tears didn't just look, manipulative or even like mockery to the enemy soldiers?
And that's the critical distinction. He wasn't showing pity. He was showing respect for competence. The sources make it so clear that Qin Wang was doing this for the sake of the country. He recognized that a unified empire needed their talent, no matter what banner they used to fly. It was a calculated display of magnanimity, designed to tell those troops, your loyalty to a competent leader is respected, and we value you as military assets.
Okay, so if Qin Wang makes the controversial call to attend, that flips all the pressure onto the former rival generals like Xu Maogong and Qin Qing. They must have suddenly realized they were auditioning for their new jobs.
Oh, it was absolutely an audition, and they treated it as a supreme political opportunity. Their execution of protocol was, well, it was meticulously flawless. Xu Maogong made sure every single detail was perfect. Helmets and armor were bright and clean. The banners and standards were orderly. They were basically shouting, without saying a word, "We are disciplined, we are competent, and we are ready to serve the new power structure."
The scale of this display is hard to grasp. They set up camps every 5 li and pavilions every 10 li. For anyone listening, a li is about 500 meters, or a third of a mile. So Qin Wang's procession is passing through a military display that stretches for miles.
It was a vast, continuous spectacle. It was all designed for maximum impact. The prince passed through 7 or 8 separate greetings, each one with rows of white-armored soldiers, ceremonial cannon fire, and kneeling officers. This wasn't just mourning. This was a military parade celebrating their own capacity, their own organization, specifically for the benefit of the man who defeated them.
But wasn't that a risk? I mean, if the Tang officials with Qin Wang saw this level of organization, couldn't they see it as proof that these guys were actually too powerful or too organized to be trusted?
That's the tightrope they were walking. But Qin Wang was sophisticated enough to recognize value. He wasn't afraid of competence. He needed it. Sitting in his chariot, he genuinely remarks that Li Mi's generals can be called knowing courtesy and knowing righteousness. So that organization just reinforced his decision, confirming that this was high-value talent worth the political risk.
And Qin Wang matched their meticulous prep with his own. Before entering the tomb, he changes into the specific state-level ceremonial outfit. A pure white silk robe with hidden dragons and a blue jade belt. It's a detail that tells you this was way more than a personal visit. This was a Tang state function.
Absolutely. The ritual had to be perfect because it dictated the emotional climax that was about to happen. This whole scene was orchestrated for a profound political effect. At the burial site, you have these 2 gold-lettered tablets honoring both Li Mi and his fallen comrade, Wang Yang.
But the thing that really broke through the political theater, the thing that created genuine empathy, was the presence of the child.
Li Mi's son, Ji-yun. He was only 3 or 4 years old, dressed in these coarse hemp mourning clothes. He was the living symbol of the vulnerability of the defeated, and when Qin Wang performs the rites, he openly weeps. He laments that Li Mi's mighty aspirations had ended here. This emotional display, the Prince of Qin weeping over the small orphan son of his former rival, that was the conversion moment.
The shared grief.
Exactly. It just transcended politics. The sources say this profound display caused all the accompanying Tang officials and the entire former rival army to weep with him. That public, shared, visceral, emotional release. It cemented their loyalty in a way that no decree or threat ever could.
And the prince immediately follows that emotional buy-in with a very pragmatic reward. After the ceremony, Qin Wang distributes a reward for the troops of 5,000 ounces of silver. So the formula is clear. Respect your enemy's competence, use high ritual and public emotion to get their buy-in, and then immediately cement that allegiance with cash.
That is the blueprint. And the sources give us one last, really poignant detail. Li Mi's wife, Duchess Dugu, and Wang Bo's wife, they chose to stay behind and guard the tomb. It shows the sentiment was real, it was deeply rooted, and it actually forced Xu Maogong to assign permanent guards to protect them.
So now the action shifts to the capital, Chang'an. The formula worked, and the former rival generals are integrated with immediate high-level assignments. Xu Shiji and Qin Qiang, for instance, are made great generals of the militant guard. I mean, they're given powerful positions right away.
They are instantly put into the highest echelons of the Tang military. This signals total trust and immediate utility. They got the titles, the money, the power. But then we have this instant interruption. Wang Bo, another of Li Mi's former generals, he surprisingly refuses his high title. He says, "I dare not accept this post."
Wait, why risk everything right then? He just watched his colleagues get immense rewards. To refuse at that moment, that seems incredibly dangerous.
It was a high-stakes move, but it was strategically brilliant. Wang Bo wasn't being rebellious. He was employing a political masterstroke. He knew the emperor's greatest ambition wasn't just to win battles, but to be remembered by history as a virtuous and righteous ruler. And Wang Bo leveraged that ambition.
And he did it using ancient principles.
Right. He cites these ancient policies, respecting the old and loving the young, punishing the guilty but not their children. And then he points out the huge gap in the Tang's compassion. The generals were rich and honored, But Li Mi's widow, Duchess Du Gu, and his infant son, Qi Yun, were left destitute back at the tomb.
So he's challenging the emperor's moral consistency in the most public way you possibly can. He's basically telling the sacred, divine, literary, and martial emperor that if he neglects his own relative, because Li Mi's wife was a princess, then historians would shred him. The whole kingdom would judge him.
It's a breathtaking risk. He's telling the emperor, you are falling short of true righteousness. But he framed it perfectly. He didn't challenge the emperor's power or his right to rule. He challenged his legacy. He argued that true legitimacy comes from embodying compassion and justice, not just from conquest. He was demanding that the emperor ascend to a higher moral plane.
And instead of executing him for being so insolent, the emperor was delighted.
He was. He got the deeper implication immediately. He praised Wang Bo as a martial minister who could discern great righteousness. This act of publicly correcting the emperor solidified the Tang's image as a moral regime, not just a successful military one. The emperor immediately commands the Ministry of Rights to bring the family to the Dugu princess's residence for care.
So the political maneuver works instantly. It provides institutional care for the vulnerable, and Li Mi's son gets symbolically adopted into the new order. They even give him a new name, Qijin.
And Qijin literally means to open the heart, or to enlighten. It symbolizes the dynasty's willingness to open its heart to the defeated. And Wang Bo wasn't just spared, he was rewarded with the prestigious title Great General of the Tiger Wings. The whole thing was a powerful statement. This dynasty respects compassion and righteousness.
This high political drama couldn't have been better timed because the celebration it immediately gives way to crisis. This whole integration was strategically necessary because urgent news arrives. The enemy commander Lu Wu is fiercely besieging Jinyang.
And Jinyang was geographically critical. The emperor himself called it the throat of the Central Plains. If it fell, the capital was vulnerable. The successful integration of these new generals wasn't just good PR, it was providentially timed to save the state.
Right, and the emperor is lamenting that he lacks a capable general to handle the threat, specifically citing this powerful enemy lieutenant, Yu Qigong. The sources call him unparalleled in valor. This is the moment the newly acquired talent has to immediately prove its worth.
And the emperor directs his generals to look at Yu Qigong's official palace portrait to really emphasize the scale of the challenge. The source gives us this truly vivid description. 9 feet tall, an iron face, round eyes, wide mouth, full beard, high nose, wearing an iron helmet and red armor, and he's wielding a bamboo joint steel whip. He looks like, and I'm quoting here, a black fiend heavenly god.
That is a literal visualization of an insurmountable obstacle. And this visual provocation drives one of the newly integrated generals, Qin Chong, to an act of incredible political theater.
Qin Chang is insulted that a base slave would have his image displayed in the Tang Hall. He requests a brush, and in this furious act of defiance and commitment, he vandalizes the image completely from top to bottom. It was a public physical destruction of the enemy's symbolic power.
That's the psychological turning point. He immediately volunteers to lead 3,000 troops to crush Yu Qigong, and he swears to face legal punishment if he fails. The respect and honor he was just shown translates instantly into total devotion to the mission.
And the strategic genius of Qin Wang is fully realized right here. Days earlier, these men were rivals. Now, one of their most formidable generals is literally destroying the image of the greatest current threat. The sources immediately detail the unified army marching, showing the speed and success of this human resource acquisition.
And the new command structure is entirely built around the generals who were just integrated. The chief commander, the marshal, is Xu Shidi Mi's former right-hand man. Qin Chong is great general. Wang Bo and Luo Shixin are the vanguards.
The Tang dynasty immediately entrusted its most critical defense mission to the former enemy. This move proved, without a doubt, that the strategy of institutional respect was strategically sound. They didn't delay, they departed that very night, heading toward Bingzhou to save Jinyang.